And we are live.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Erica Zikos, and welcome to the Amherst Design Review Board meeting of December 15th, 2024. As the chair, I'm calling this meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available via the Town of Amherst YouTube channel. Minutes are being taken. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and extended again by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or by telephone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. A hyperlink to the hearing will be posted on the town's online calendar. Board members, I will take roll call. When I call your name, please let me know that you're here. Lindsay Schnarr. Come back to Lindsay. Karen Winter.
Here.
Lindsay's waved affirmatively. Pat Oth.
Present.
Thank you. Karen Blum.
Here.
Great. And Erica Zikos present. Board members, if technical issues arise, we may need to pause temporarily to fix the problem and then continue the meeting. If the discussion needs to pause, it will be noted in the minutes. Please use the raised hand function to ask a question or make a comment. I'll see your request and call on you to speak. After speaking, please remember to remute yourself. The general public comment item is reserved for public comment regarding items that are both on and not on tonight's agenda. Please be aware, though, the board will not respond to comments during the general public comment period. Public comment could also be heard at other times during the meeting when determined appropriate. Please indicate that you wish to make a comment by clicking the raised hand button when public comment is solicited. If you've joined the Zoom meeting using a telephone, please indicate that you wish to make a comment by pressing *9 on your phone. When called on, please identify yourself by stating your full name and address and put yourself back into mute when finished speaking. Residents can express their views for up to 3 minutes or at the discretion of the chair. If a speaker does not comply with these guidelines or exceeds their allotted time, their participation will be discontinued from the meeting. Tonight's agenda includes the following. We'll start with general public comment and then move on to our applications. And we have 3 tonight. DRB FY 2025-09 and 24/8 /24/8 177 North Pleasant Street. DRB 2025-10 24/24/9 29A Cottage Street Ancestral Bridges Foundation, and FY 2025-11 24/10 45 to 51 North Pleasant Street Amherst Oyster Bar. Then we'll move on to approval of minutes and get on to other business, which for us, we are hoping will conclude our discussion of revisions to the DRB review standards. Okay, shall we get started? Is there anybody here from Four Seasons?
They are not here right now. I do not see them.
Okay.
I'm trying to track them down.
Well, I can see that there's a representative here from Ancestral Bridges. So if they're, public comment. My apologies. I do that every time.
Okay.
Public comment. Let's hear that first.
No one is in the waiting room or the attendees room, so we don't have anyone from the public wishing to comment.
All right. Thank you for that, Jacinta.
You're welcome.
All right, then. So if no one's here from Four Seasons, we'll table them and move forward since Ancestral Bridges is here and ready to roll. Greetings and welcome.
Didn't realize I was muted still. Thank you. Good evening.
Would you introduce yourself? And if I will say this, you submitted some documents to the DRB, and I'm happy to share the screen on your behalf, or you're also welcome to share the screen if you'd prefer.
I would appreciate if you would share.
Okay, I'll do that. And while I'm pulling up the documents, if you want to give us a brief introduction to what you're bringing to the board tonight, that would be great.
Sure. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Anika Lopes. I am the founder and president of the Ancestral Bridges Foundation. We have been doing quite a few things around town. You may or may not have been aware that we have an exhibit which was up at Amherst College for some time at the Frost Library. So we do have a partnership with them that will be expanding. And what I am here today is for signage and your opinion and hopefully approval on signage that we would use for a location at 29 Cottage Street, which is going to help expand the arts and cultural scene of Amherst. We will be bringing forward the Black and Indigenous roots of Amherst, coming from the first families that we represent as descendants. And we will be bringing them forward through a descendant perspective. So just, you know, a bit about, we will, at this location, will house actually an expansion of this exhibit. And we have a few very, you know, interesting projects that we're also excited to share with the community going forward. I'm not sure how much of that we, you know, get into here. This is my first time going through this process, so I guess I will just leave it at that unless anyone has any other questions.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think the purview of the DRB is to talk about the signage that you're proposing, which you might want to talk a little bit about its placement and its design. And then we're here to provide some feedback, and then we'll make a recommendation to the building commissioner, who will then ultimately approve your sign.
Okay.
Happy to learn about what you have going on, but really we're here to, our role is to talk about changes to the exterior of the
Okay.
building. So,
All right. So just a few changes. We just went ahead and placed a sign if there was an outdoor signage where maybe we would desire to have it. I understand when the space was used as a Boys and Girls Club, they had a big one like on the, I saw the picture, it was a big one like on the side of the building. We actually are not opposed to not having any signage on the outside of the building because we have an extensive experience that will come in from that front door. So as you can see there, the sign that is just actually on the glass door, the physical door, that we would, you know, we're more concerned with that. But again, in the event we wanted or needed to have something on the outside, we just wanted to know if that, you know, what are the size regulations, when would this be okay?
okay. And I'm just checking to see, there are some, this is just supplementary information, and the first page here is also just the cover page, so I'm not missing any.
No.
Okay, great. I'll leave the image here.
Mhm.
And then do you have any thoughts on the material of the sign? It
would be on the door?
Yeah.
So the door, so we have actually, when you come like inside the building, there is a, oh gosh. I'm not sure what exactly they call, but it's like, that would go on the walls there. It's actually thick. It's a kind of foam core, but it's fairly significant. That actually goes behind on the walls. What would come on that glass door facing out, I believe it's through a vinyl. They actually put them right on the door. They actually measured the door to do it. And I just, in speaking with them the other day, they wouldn't even be able to do this until spring, because I guess it needs to be consistently 50 degrees for about 4 days before they can do it. So it would have a little bit more of a flow as opposed to just being like that white block that you see. It would incorporate the logo, but it would pop in the colors of the logo, which are brown and gold hues. It might not be as easy to see there. So it would have a better flow as opposed to just like a white block on the door. In the interim, they might give us something that resembles what you see here more up until the springtime.
Okay, great. So I'll turn it over to members of the board for any clarifying questions or comments for Ms. Lopes.
Thank you.
Lindsay, I see you talking, but you're muted.
Talking to my son who's interrupting me.
Oh, I'm sorry. In that
Okay.
case, I saw
But I do have comments, so I'll just
okay.
Well, I love this rendering. It's really compelling. So the door signage, I'm just curious if the white is an artifact of like the white border around the letters and the symbol. Is that an artifact of having it kind of cropped out of the image? Or is it actually going to have a white border around it or some kind of edge color?
That is actually from just being cut and paste. That was like just trying to give you idea of placement. There would not be the kind of like the stark rectangle. That was actually just, I believe, just taken from possibly letterhead just to put it up there so you could have an idea of what the logo actually looks like.
So I think my only real concern around that is just readability. So if it's like, you know, kind of a dark just the lighting beyond, as you can see in this image, like you may not be able to really get a strong contrast between the brown gold tones that you're talking about for the lettering and the background of just like the interior space, kind of the ambient lighting. So might just think about that, like having some kind of edging that might be a stronger contrast, whether it's white or something shiny, just to kind of give it something to kind of define it from the darkness of the ambient light beyond. Um, and then in terms of the signage to the side, I think, you know, I love the symbol, and the font and the color. And my only concern would just be with plants growing up, shrubs growing up and potentially blocking that signage over time. And maybe giving it some kind of frame or something that aligns it with kind of the top of the windows, just to give it kind of an anchor place.
So, or is it just me?
I'm sorry,
I think, I'm not sure if it was just me or that you froze.
did I freeze?
I heard you saying like your concern was like if the over
The plants.
and then you broke up.
Okay, so yeah, just if the shrubbery grew up too tall, might block that at that particular location. And then in terms of the signage itself, maybe just giving it some kind of frame or aligning it with the header of the windows, just to kind of give it an anchor that's aligned with the building. The alternative would be to find some way to mount it above the doorway, which I think might be preferable just in terms of visibility, but sounds like you don't rely on that signage as much. But that would just move it out of the way of that kind of planting area, and let that, you know, grow up however it wants to. So those are my only thoughts. But
Thanks, Lindsay. Pat, you had your hand, go for it.
Well, Lindsay spoke for me
Okay.
because those are my same thoughts. And I think the sign
yeah, I'm not-
to the side, it- raising it to be equal to the header of the windows is a good one. On putting it over the door also works, but that would be a whole nother request.
Yeah, if I could jump in there, I did drive by the building, and there's no precedent for for signage over the doors. All of the signage of the other tenants in this building are on the surface of the wall, like immediately adjacent to the door or nearby. So I'm not sure that this building supports the idea of like having a placard. It's kind of popping up above the door at the roof level, but I like that idea of raising it up higher. Karen, please.
Yes, I think I agree with all the comments that have been made. The outside sign, and I think it's a wonderful logo. The outside sign, having it level with the framing, the top frame of the windows, but I think framing the actual sign would be useful. It might give it more definition and be direct the eye to that sign in a crisper way, in a cleaner way.
I'm in agreement, and I know that the sign on the door is your short-term plan, the more immediate one. And so there, I think the recommendation is absolutely, but with concern about legibility, we can see in this image that, interior spaces often read as darker from the outside. And so the dark letter on the dark background means that it would be hard for people to see. So that outline in white would make sure that your logo pops. And then I would also support my colleagues in suggesting that the exterior sign be aligned with the top of the 2 adjacent windows. And then to consider, building a frame around the sign itself to give it some impact. You had asked about how, like, whether it was the right size or not. I think the limit on this is 10% of the overall building facade, so you are well within that.
Yeah.
You could essentially mural part of the building, but I don't think that's your intention. So, yeah, I think you're well within reason here, and it's a beautiful logo. So,
Thank you. We're
Yeah.
very, very hopeful that the wrapping, I guess is what it is, of the door will be able to, with the color pops and borders and taking in all of your great suggestions, will really help that door pop, and it won't
oh, I think
be,
it's you that
stark.
froze.
And that, and like the ideal hope is that, we're really able to make that door pop so it can stand alone.
Got it. Got it. All right. Would anybody like to summarize our comments in a motion? And Karen, can I just ask you if that's a legacy hand raise or if you had another comment?
Oh, gosh, I did it again.
Right, thank you. Would anybody like to summarize our comments in a motion? Lindsay?
All right, I move that we approve the signage on the door with recommendations to provide some kind of contrasting outline of the lettering to make it stand out from the background of the interior space. And consider for the wall signage to frame the sign and align the top of the frame with the header of the windows.
I second it.
Thank you, Karen. Is there any comment or discussion on the motion? Great, all those in favor, let us know, say aye.
I,
Raise your
Aye.
hand. Is that everyone? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Have a nice evening. Ciao.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
And Jacinta, should we try to circle back to the Four Seasons?
Yes,
team?
Mr. Paquette is online now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Quad, did you want to unmute yourself and present?
Alrighty. Can you
Hi,
guys?
welcome. Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Yeah, so I was just presenting what we had sent over in regards to 177 North Pleasant Street. And I wasn't sure. I think I dealt with this at 69 Main Street. But I'm not super familiar with the design review board process. So
All
I
right.
had submitted to you all everything that we had. Essentially what's happening is they are just replacing the existing fence with new material. None of that layout will change. It will just be replaced with new cedar stockade at 6 foot in height, which is same height as there.
All right. So the images that were submitted to the DRB, and I think you can see my screen share now. We've got a kind of a site plan with a red line that is locating the fence
Yes, ma'am.
And then we've got this cut sheet showing us some details of the fence
It's-
design.
It's a 3-rail standard stockade at 6 foot in height.
Okay, great.
And it'll be set on 4x4 treated posts.
And is that the product that's there now and it's just deteriorated and you need to replace it?
Yes, yes. Actually, what's currently there is spruce, which doesn't last near as long as cedar. And they asked me for both quotes, but they proceeded with cedar.
Okay. All right, DRB members, any questions or comments for Mr. Paquette? I think we're gonna make this easy for you tonight. Barring any comment, and noting that this is just a replacement, I will move to approve this proposal as submitted. Oh. Karen is seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's
Aye.
everyone. There you go. You're free to replace your fence.
Right.
Actually, I think it technically goes to the building commissioner first, but then you
Yeah,
can
so
replace your fence.
I will pay you guys will submit through the portal that it's been approved, and it will go to building commissioner and pay the permit fees.
Yep.
All righty, perfect. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for making our town a nice place to live. Have a nice night.
You as well.
All right. And then last up is revisiting Amherst Oyster Bar. Greetings.
Hi there. Hello,
Happy to
everyone.
have you here. Let's see, I could share my screen or you are welcome to.
I'll drive if you don't mind.
All right, take it away.
All right. Okay.
Oh,
So-
and Dylan, reintroduce yourself and.
Yes, my
mind.
name is Dylan Barstow-Mans, one of the owners at Amherst Oyster Bar. We've been getting through a bunch of stuff to get to this point, and we're excited to announce that we're looking at a February open. And so the one of the last things that we wanted to bring back to y'all is the lighting of the sign. So we've gone through the paint color that we've chosen with you guys. We've gone through the awnings. We've gone through logo. And one of the things that we wanted to revisit was the sign lighting. So originally we had gooseneck lights that came over the top to downlight the sign. And after getting the facade raised up here on the front, and trying to find some gooseneck lights that we thought looked nice with the top, it kind of broke up the roof line. And so we're looking for a more streamlined approach that looked a little bit more polished. And so our proposal was these the halo lit channel letters. So during the daytime, they would appear white. It's just a white font with our font name called Stout by Alpha Type. And then at the evening time, there's a subtle glow that happens on the back side of the letters to kind of get like a backlighting against the dark blue paint. So we're trying to go with something that had some contrast, something that also is dark sky friendly, and just a cleaner look on the roofline. And that's it. Open for questions and comments. And
Glad to hear you say that they're dark sky friendly. I think that that's really, it's important and it's.
yeah, it's important. It's important too. All of us involved personally. So we figured that was the way to go.
Okay. DRB members, any questions or comments?
I think it looks great, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the way you're approaching it, that it's visible in the day and in the night, and your graphics are really helpful in communicating that. The design of the storefront, I think, looks beautiful, and I'm really excited that you're opening.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah, I would agree with Lindsay. It's got a classic style to it, and it's subtle, but
Mhm.
important to highlight the oyster bar.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, and it is that, I think if you could go back a page, just want to clarify what the spacing will,
In this detail?
yeah, like, oh no, so not the spacing off the building, but the spacing between letters on the facade itself. Here it looks a little bit more generous and appropriate for the building. And then on the next page, you had the words spelled out in kind of more typical typography where that Amherst Oyster Bar, where it's kind of dimensioned, looks a little tighter.
Yeah, so the reason why I wanted to drive the thing that I submitted, I noticed they didn't have our font name. And so before this, I went into some Photoshop and tried my best at making it look correct with the font and everything. But yeah, the kerning is important. The spacing between each letter will be important to me in keeping the brand right. And then the spacing between each word, it's something that we can that we'll kind of figure out the right proportions. I think it's going to be a little bit wider than what I have listed here, but that was mostly
Yeah.
because I typed it out before the meeting.
Okay, good. Because I do think that the more generous spacing that's suggested in
This one?
the rendered view, yeah, is more appropriate for the building. It seems to fill the space and
I agree.
yeah. Okay. Pausing for any last thoughts or observations. Okay. Would anybody else like to make the motion?
I make a motion that we accept the signage as presented this evening.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Karen. All those in favor? The motion,
Aye.
aye, and that's everybody.
Great.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you so much.
See you in February.
And if you guys want oysters soon on this Thursday for the Sip and Stroll, we're doing an oyster and wine pairing at Protocol. It's like a sneak peek. So we got the GM for Oyster Bar over there, and we're getting into it.
What
Nice.
time?
Yeah, cool.
What time?
Oh, I'm not sure when the Sip and Stroll starts, but it's affiliated with the Sip and Stroll. It might be 5 o'clock or so.
You're right, 5 o'clock.
Cool. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Bye now.
All right, let me close a couple of tabs here. All right, approval of meeting minutes. Do you all do your homework? You've all read them in advance.
I had just a couple comments, if you can put them up, please.
Sure.
Mine are there's just two comments referencing some wording that one is just a correction and the other is more of a concern.
Okay.
So if you can scroll down to comments for the first item further. Right here. That. I think it was the next item, the one with the Jones storefront.
Discussion.
Yeah, okay. I just was feeling a little uncomfortable with the word schnar persisted in terms of trying to understand the applicant's vision. I know I was being persistent, but yeah, I just thought if we could choose a term that might not feel quite so aggressive, that would be appreciated. So that's just the concern one. And then the next one is about a little further down. Okay, keep going. Okay, wait. It was about flashing.
No exact match.
Yeah, maybe it's further up. Sorry.
I'm sure I'll turn the window.
Oh, okay. About the flash. So just
Yeah.
change that to flashing.
You see that one, Jacinta?
Yes, I've got both of those noted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other observations or comments for edit sake?
I also was curious how much documentation we typically have. I don't remember us having like the conversation around the conversation that we're having around kind of the language for the standards. Is that something that we want to make public or need to make public?
It is very detailed.
I guess it's just more a question of like, you know, we're having this conversation to
Yeah.
really clarify our internal, well, we're doing it to clarify our standards, but we're having a conversation that's more internal, I think, or I thought. And so I'm just asking the question of like, how much of this needs to be documented because it is public? Versus can we have some of these discussions that aren't about applicants be more inward focused and not included in these minutes? Just a question.
Lindsay, can you repeat or say the last part of your question again? I didn't quite capture all of that.
I'm wondering about the conversations that we have after applications are approved or decided upon. So this discussion here about our design review standards, as well as like right now having a conversation about meeting minutes, like are these conversations needing to be documented and included in the meeting minutes, or can those conversations be kept internal and not part of this document?
So is the question somewhat about, do we include these in the minutes?
Yes.
I don't know. Chair Zikos, what do you think?
I think it's a reasonable question. I think that there's one side that says we could simply have a bullet point that said the board discussed design review board standards, period. And then there's another place that might be a somewhat more intermediate space that said themes, then themes included conversation about the role of should versus shall and the board's definition of compatibility. Then it doesn't necessarily need to get into the, each person's comment or our struggle to define that on the page. The recorded document is part of the permanent record as well. And if anybody wanted to dig in further, they could certainly go there. So if it saves you time in typing, Jacinta, then, I'm all for kind of an intermediate space. Because some of this, the back and forth isn't, I think if we look at this 5 years from now, it's not going to be that informative that like I said this and Lindsay said that and Karen responded and so on and so forth. So I can see an argument for simplifying for sure.
Well, I will yield to whatever the board decides. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier before the meeting, and for me, it's about finding that balance for each board or commission. So I don't know, what the style preference is, but I'm hearing for this board, the style preference is brevity, which I'm happy to accommodate. Um, so I can take that note and do that for the future.
I think I would land if I were given the option, I would land in that intermediate space. That was
Okay.
not so brief that it didn't capture. No, there's too many double negatives. I think that it could capture the themes of our discussion, and then of course any action items or outcomes as well.
Okay.
The things
I'm
that we
happy to
chewed
do
on.
that.
Lindsay, do you think that that addresses your
Yeah,
question?
that's helpful. Because I do, well, for one thing, I did not realize that these were going to be part of our documented, that this discussion was going to be documented. So while I knew, we're working towards something that absolutely will be public, it feels like there's an important discussion for us to be able to have internally without having all of those details be open to public responses. So yeah, I think that, certainly in terms of conversations we have post applications, review of applications, I think that's really important to be as, succinct as possible and general as possible. But I would certainly also suggest that for our our meetings with the public as well, like the conversations that we have about applications, and just the more succinct, the easier it is for us to read, and kind of the less detailed about back and forth, I think is helpful. But that's just, that's my personal preference. Open to what other people think.
Yeah, I'm curious to see just if anybody else on the board has a thought about this. And then I'll make a suggestion to. And if not, that's okay. You can definitely just move ahead as things are. Pat, go ahead.
Well, Erica, I agree with you. There needs to be an intermediate so that the thinking is not lost, but it doesn't need to be as detailed as this particular minutes is. We don't want to lose the detail, but we don't need to have every word that everybody said to keep the detail. And so that intermediate approach appeals to me.
Thanks. And Karen, please.
I agree with that. I think something in the middle would make the most sense, because we don't want to lose some of the texture of the discussion. I'm just curious, what would that mean for the person who is transcribing the notes? Because it involve having to summarize, which is another step. So I'm just curious.
I will do a version when I send this one out. I think sometimes, especially when we're reviewing the applications, I do find the discussions to be helpful, especially if someone is watching, or, and again, I'll pause here to say that I don't send the notes out to the public after I take them. So the minutes just basically stay internal. They don't go anywhere afterwards. But I do find the discussions helpful to try to capture that, especially if someone doesn't know much, or, there's still this overlying, or, this overhanging idea that the DRB doesn't need to exist. So I try to show people that they kind of do need to exist. But I can definitely find an intermediate way to capture the conversation without being so explicit, if you will.
And I think we could also create a bit of a distinction between, as Lindsay's suggesting, these places where we've been chewing on the revisions to the standards, and it is a little bit more of a, I don't want to say internal because we're a public board, but internally for now focused conversation. And then that could be kind of more succinct. And then conversations with applicants, I think that the kind of detail that you're capturing is pretty great. So, because you're right, they might want to go back. The building commissioner might like to go back. And that is more public facing. So, Karen, jump in.
Yeah, I also think the benefit of that is that if someone were to look at the material and wonder, have they thought about these issues?
Yeah.
It would be there for them to be aware that this was considered.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think to summarize, less in the internal discussion section and kind of keep it where it is right now for the application section.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
That sounds great. And so I think given this conversation, maybe we should hold off from approving this minutes and then ask for revision, and we can vote at our next meeting to approve.
Sure, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
All right. And then speaking of the standards, don't think anybody from the general public has appeared. So we could just kind of step forward. I had promised to continue to chew on what we mean by compatible. And so I did that and share with you now the most recent version of the standards that we've discussed is the text in black, and then proposed revisions are in red. So you'll see throughout the document, should is replaced with shall, and we can discuss individual appearances of that change. The most significant change is an attempt to capture what we mean by this word compatibility. And so the notes that I took at the last meeting are over here in the comment. We might reference, we might diverge. It means that it doesn't present a conflict, nor does it replicate. So, and then I tried to wrestle that into a very brief couple of sentences that I'll pause for a minute and let you all review.
I think it sounds great. I
Um,
really appreciate you taking the time to do it. Not to like add another layer of complication, but I guess the reality is that if there is, and I guess I'm just thinking about this out loud, if there is a historic, facade, like it's a historic district sort of building, then replication may be, something that is required and part of the design, but I don't think we necessarily need to get into the weeds of that. Perhaps, I just want to mention it as a note of when it is necessary to do
Mhm.
that. But like in terms of new construction that doesn't fall under the historic guidelines requirements, then I think it's great.
You make an excellent point.
I agree with that. I think that point is actually very important, given that we do have some historic structures in town.
Yeah.
And debate, for example, is going on with the library. I just think it would be useful to distinguish that. Your description is great. I think it really captures the discussion we had, but just that additional piece might be useful.
Right. If anybody wants to workshop this, we should definitely try to come up with something together tonight. Pat, what did you want to offer?
Well, the Historical Commission has guidelines about what percentage of, of the facade, the streetscape particularly, can change and when it has to go to the historical commission for a recommendation, approval or not. So I think the point, it should distinguish between new architecture and existing architecture, because existing architecture is governed primarily initially by the historical commission, and there are guidelines that are very clear about that. So I like the statement, but I think we need to distinguish between existing structures and new architecture.
Mhm. Go ahead, please.
So yes, and I think maybe there's a simple way to just change our language. And I do want to clarify, like, not all existing buildings are historic. So I think that we don't want to say, with the exception to existing buildings. I think perhaps just saying with the exception of, the design review board recognizes that, with the exception of,
Buildings that fall
Buildings that
under, Pat, what would be the right language there?
Well, perhaps buildings that are subject to review by the historical commission.
perfect. I think that's great.
Become a very long sentence. So there's my editor. And this also is a should and not a shall.
Yes. Is should might be may? Not to get too big.
Where is that?
At the bottom, new interventions may diverge from existing. I don't know.
We tried to also be a little bit more general. We review so many signs or an individual window, and I use the word intervention here as to try and capture the range of scales that we discuss. It's not always a new building.
You could,
that word resonates beyond.
I'm wondering if, because you already used it previously, if you could just say, rather than having to say proposals in the last piece, you could just, and new proposals may diverge from existing context, but not present conflict. But shall not present conflict.
Okay.
So you put proposals in place of interventions there. Above, yeah. What do you think about that?
Like this?
That makes sense.
And exception of buildings should be buildings that are subject to review by the historical commission.
Hang on. Does the historical commission review proposals that are not of buildings?
That was just crossing my mind. Yes, there are buildings that are residential, that are business, that are farm silos, etc. But there also is a context to streetscape, which could include landscaping and other things. But I think this makes it, maybe with the exception of buildings and streetscapes that are subject to review by the historical commission.
Proposals, again, that's using the word proposals again, but I don't.
So buildings should stay in.
Mhm.
Maybe you can-
It should be buildings and streetscapes.
Or could it just be conditions?
Well, you know, we reviewed signs on the historical commission that were proposed for directions and parking and Amherst College at the UMass, et cetera. And that kind of comes under the streetscapes because it's a broad term, but I think it's better to use a broader term in this case than to be specific about those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
After reading this all the way through, I think it may make sense to put a period after historical commission parentheses and then start a new sentence with new proposals may diverge, but shall not present conflict. And I may add per the guidelines, you know, something about like per the guidelines, like of
The
these
line below.
standards, of these standards or something like that. However you want to say that. I just think that yeah.
Yeah, that's a good addition.
I'm reading. The desired word. Mhm. All right.
I think I would also, not to be a stickler for might and may, but it is something that I'm particularly sensitive to for some reason. But I might change might to may. Interventions may. What do you guys think? Interventions may reference existing architecture.
Yeah, I think that's.
That too, yeah.
Otherwise, I think it looks great.
I have a question. And I guess it's the part about diverge from existing context. Would it be not enough to say proposal should not present conflict per the standards outlined below? In other words, that particular phrase, is it necessary or is it enough to reference what comes below?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. New proposals, just strike.
And just go to shall not present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I was trying to hit both ends of the spectrum. One is that on one extreme end of the spectrum, a project may aim to replicate, and we're trying to dissuade that. And on the other end of the spectrum, a project may aim to be so different that it doesn't feel harmonious, and we're trying to dissuade that as well. So that was the intent of those words, is to hit that other end of the spectrum. But if I am okay with leaving them out, if we feel that that's just embedded in the proposal, like in the guidelines, sorry.
I think you did hit it in the previous sentence, because you said should not aim to replicate it,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is pretty clear. And then below shall not present conflict. So I think
Great.
got it.
Excellent.
Great conversation. Thank you for going down that road with me.
Yeah, this is good. So here we are. This is a revision too, and if you recall, the version of the standards that we're working with today look like this. And if we are feeling ready, we could take a vote on, and the funny thing is I don't know where this goes, right? Like, are we sharing I think what we would be doing would be sharing with the planning board our proposed revisions and asking for their feedback before this gets codified. Karen?
Yeah, I don't have it all in front of me, so this may be in it, but at one point we had talked about mechanical equipment.
Oh, let's see.
And I don't know if it may be in one of the points.
Yeah, let's see. Did we capture that? Actual expression pattern rhythm. That would be a
I
lowercase.
did have it in here somewhere.
I'm sorry, did you see it there?
I just remembered it from a previous conversation too, but maybe it's not.
Mm,
We had talked about shall be screened from view or
Mhm.
shall be integrated into the overall design of the building.
Mhm. I think that's important.
agree. So it would be here in constituent elements.
Okay.
At the street level or?
Yeah, this is an important piece, like who needs to be, at what scale are we screening? Because if you try to screen mechanical equipment from the view of the person who is adjacent to it on the fourth floor of the next door building, that might be unreasonable, but pedestrian.
Street level, view at street level or something like that.
And then metal chimneys, where would that fit into that? Would that be part of it?
That's a metal chimney.
Well,
Could
as part of the mechanical demands.
you give an example with like
Well, something that is not really considered part of the exterior design, not the purpose, not the goal of the exterior design, but it is required for mechanical purposes.
I think that would fall under mechanical equipment.
I think so. Because it's part of, say, the building's ventilation or
Right.
heating system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it too much to ask for us to review it for one final round and then be ready to sign off, or do you all feel ready to go?
Awful.
I can be ready, but I'm also okay with taking it for one more review.
I do appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness, and if you would like one more round, that is okay with me. But I'll make this the final. So I'm curious about if anybody has any thoughts. Let's just straw poll on this one. Pat, go ahead.
I actually think it's a great revision, and I could be ready to go with it.
Karen or Karen?
I could too.
Okay.
And I agree. I think it's a great revision. Good job.
Yeah.
Complicated, and I think you worded it very well.
Thanks.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
It's great.
All right, I'm in favor.
Okay. Then.
I tend to overthink things, so I'm happy to be outnumbered in this
Well, you know, I think too that like keep in mind that this is the document that we're gonna send forward and that it may not be the last opportunity for us to make revisions. And frankly, with the work that's being done by Dodson and Flinker, we may be called upon to revise
You're right.
yet again, but I do think that this gives us a good foothold, a really good starting point. So I'm glad that we've gone through this exercise. It's been really interesting. All right, so I'll make a motion this time that we a motion to approve the proposed revision of DRB standards dated December 5th. I'm going to change this date to December 16, 2024. Is there
Second.
a second? Lindsay?
Mhm.
Thanks. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
That's everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a huge job that you took on.
Oh, no, this was a team effort. This was a team effort. This was
Well,
great.
You did the heavy lifting.
I did the consolidating. Let's leave it at that. All right. That may be the end of the agenda.
Erica, could you send out the standards once
Yeah.
that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to make sure that Jacinta has this document because it wasn't part of it's part of the agenda, but it wasn't part of the package because we were just talking about language. So I will be sure to share that with everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Any other business?
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly address Lindsay's concern earlier, going back to the word choice of persisted. It
Yes.
just was not meant to be a negative portrayal of you. I just want to clarify that. Just
I
couldn't
felt-
think of another word at the time, and it just stayed in the minutes. So I don't want you to feel like I was trying to make you out to seem like something that you were
That's
not.
okay.
So
No, I was being persistent, but yeah, I just didn't want it to be recorded that way.
I
But thank
understand.
you. No, I didn't take offense at all. And I was just gonna say I love your background. It's really fun.
Thank you.
The other business that I want to bring to the table is a conversation about upcoming dates for meetings. I may be away at the next one, which I believe is scheduled for January 20th.
Yes. Yes.
What will we do without you?
I believe I'm away then too on that date.
Should
Yeah.
we choose the fourth Monday instead?
Well, we could choose the fourth Monday, or if everybody else feels committed to being there, it's still a quorum and could just run the meeting without Karen and me. So.
Yes, I will be away, but as long as we're on Zoom, I can participate.
Is that a holiday?
A
The
holiday.
20th?
It's a holiday.
Yes.
Maybe we should
20th is a
change it
holiday.
then.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
20th is a
Look, that's
holiday. and
why
it's
it
Martin
doesn't
Luther King
work.
Day.
That's why
Okay.
we're all, well,
So it would be the
Excellent. So
27th.
it'd be the 27th, which I can totally do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, good. Edit that. And then this is a good time to just check in. Is this time continuing to work with people's changing and shifting lives and things? So it's 5 to 7 p.m. generally on the third Monday.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I like the 5 o'clock.
Gives us time to get to the planning board meetings afterwards, right? All right, thank you all. This is
I will just say if you guys were open to starting a little earlier, that would be helpful to me with my family situation. I'm always feeling like a lot of pressure to wrap up, but that's
Mhm.
just my life and you guys don't have to work around it. If there was that option, it would be helpful.
I teach until 4, so the earliest I could do would be 4:30.
And we
Um,
have usually local historical district commission meets from 3 to 5. So sometimes I'm actually back to back.
Okay,
No worries.
Yeah.
This is
all
fine.
right, respect that. Okay, well, speaking of family, I can see Rugrats in the background there. Let's see, so why don't we wrap? Happy holidays to you all.
Holidays.
And happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you all.
Same here. Happy
Okay.
holidays.
Thanks
Thank
for all your
you.
work.
Thanks, Jacinta.
Bye.
I will send you an email with those updated standards right now.
Fantastic.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Erica.
Thank you.
Ciao, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.